Hello, Assalamu alaikum, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Uh, Good night for Bahrain's times and good early morning for US time. I will start after a couple of minutes, maybe three minutes. After 3 minutes, we will start, maybe 2 minutes. And just waiting, thank you, Zahra. Waiting just Jessica to join, and so we can start one of the hottest topics that related to brand and brand strategy. It's a lot of talks about this topic, especially for the entrepreneurs, for a startup, and even for designers, which is like it's very hot. Plus, it's debatable because there are different point of view regarding the strategy. What's the strategy? Do we need it or not? And it is essential for a startup, or we have to think later on. There are a lot of points. We will share a couple of points with Jessica after a couple of seconds or minutes with her, just waiting for her to join, so we can start. And inshallah, we need your engagement, your interactions, your questions, so we can share our knowledge together. Especially this topic is one topic I already just read a lot of articles, magazines, books, and it's really deep, and there are different perspectives about what's the brand strategy stand for, different definition, different angle that you can see what's the brand strategy stand for. So just waiting now, Jessica. So our conversation or our live IG with Jessica, it will be as follow. It will be like a small introduction about branding and strategy. Then we have to come up with a couple of points that we will share it with you. And of course, before everything, we have to introduce Jessica to you. Who's Jessica? Yes, I think she's joined now. And just awaiting her request. So both of us will be live very short. Just a minute. Yes, request now. Yes, I think she's joined. Okay. Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning to you and good evening to us.
Yes, good evening. I was on a coaching call, business coaching call the other day, and the girl I was coaching, she lives in Algeria, and she taught me something. Salam alaikum.
Okay, good. Salam alaikum.
Salam
Alaikum
alaikum.
salam. Do you know what's meaning of salam alaikum?
No, tell me. Is it like
it's like peace upon you, you know?
peace over you?
That's why, for example, the word Islam is coming from peace. Islam, salam, same origin.
Same
Yeah, alaikum
thing.
salam, Jessica. Okay.
What a beautiful
That's good.
greeting. I love that.
Thank you. So just to get the best of you, I will use every second. Okay. So to spread the knowledge among all the participants tonight. So I will start with a small introduction about you, so everybody know who's Jessica. Jessica is from United States. Started her career in design as a freelancer, and moved into the brand strategy 2 years ago. Yeah, when she founded OUTPOUR. Just if you're spelling yes correct or not, just correct me, Jessica.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, she's dedicated the last 2 years to teaching and imbuing both designers and business leaders who want to see the brand they are working with through. I think, by the way, I just visit Jessica website. It's clear, minimalistic, to the point, very professional, and I suggest everybody who's joining this conversation tonight to just have a look to Jessica's Instagram account, plus of course her website, because what we are looking for, Jessica, is what they call it engagement and circulation of the knowledge. That's what we are looking for, because especially if we are from Middle East, you are from United States, of course there are common things when we're talking about strategy, we're talking about brand, because at the end of the day is the human-centric thought. Okay, and from that I will start my first intro with the brand gap, of course, everybody who's interested about the branding and strategy, of course, he will know this book and the author. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, and his page, I think 15. Yes, just let me read just 2 lines, which is that grabbed my attention. He said about Edward De Bono, of course, Edward De Bono, very famous, advised marketers that instead of building a brand on USP, everybody knows what's a USP, unique selling point or unique selling proposition. He said they should pay more attention to UBS, means the unique buying state of their customers, which is, he stated like this, Edward De Bono, maybe he's the first, he's living ahead from his time because he thinks about the human-centric design. That's what you are looking for.
Right.
So from that, when talking about brand strategy, do you think, Jessica, brand strategy is essential, especially now with the startup, with entrepreneurs, everybody, he or she want to start his or her business. At the end, maybe of the journey of the business, he or she will think about brand, I mean the visual identity, but where's the brand strategy among all this hustle and and thinking about starting business? What do you think?
Sure. Well, Jafar, I love what you said. I love that you opened with that book because I think it is one of the foundational books in our field. And I think when we're talking about brand strategy and where it fits in the business process, as far as I'm concerned, it belongs at the very base of everything that a business does. Because when we're talking about human-centric design, it is, and what you said, the USB versus the UBS principle, a lot, in the 50s and the 60s and 70s, marketing was product centric and most things were commodity based. And now we're in a field where almost nothing is commodity based. There's there's so much competition in the market. And so when someone founds a business, especially with startups, finding the place where they are positioned in the market is so important. And the way that brand strategy helps us do that is we clarify those customers right off the bat, who we are targeting with our human-centric design. And so I love what Marty Neumeier, just to kind of give a definition and a starting place when we're talking about branding, a brand is not a logo. Marty Neumeier, one of the greats in this industry, he says that a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product or a service or a business. And so when we're talking about customer-centric design, that's actually what we're aiming for in branding, is cultivating that feeling within our customers. So to me, I think that brand strategy has to be done at the very beginning of a startup, but it can also be done at different, and I think it should be done at different stages throughout a business's growth. So I think it belongs in every stage of business.
Okay, if we just do what they call to come back to the basic. When we want to define what is the brand strategy, because before going to what will be the pillars, the basic pillars, some writer, they said that there are 4 pillars for the brand strategy. Others said maybe there's 12 to 13 pillars. So there are different perspectives about brand strategy, but at least we have to define for the audience what is the brand strategy.
Yeah. That's a great place to start. So brand strategy, if we break it down, so if a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization, and we're using that to define brand, when we look at the word strategy, all strategy means is a plan to get from point A to point B. Okay. And part of that is identifying and clarifying point A and point B. And so when we take that and we put those 2 words together, brand strategy is where we clarify where the company is today, and we clarify the current operating strategies of the business and customers. And then we also clarify where we're going. So we're clarifying future target markets. We're clarifying business goals, things that we're aiming at. And then the strategy is looking at it and building the process of tactics that we're going to execute in order to get the brand to its goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so brand strategy is like a roadmap for every entrepreneur or business owner, either a small or medium or big size company, to draw that the journey, the customer journey. Because even Melinda, well, of course, everybody knows Melinda, talking about the journey from A to B, we have to distinguish. Most of us thinking about what I call it now, the iceberg of the business, which is maybe the visual identity, the deliverables, ATL, BTL, TTL, all that terminology related to business, to brand identity and its applications, but they ignore the core of the business, which is the spirit, what I call the spirit, the soil, which is the customer. So we have to define, as you said, we have to define two things, which is the core of the business, the why, what and how, and we have to define what will be the deliverables that will be translate this core to something tangible. That's what we call it: user experience, user interface, engagement, etc., etc. So merging together, that's what I think. Merging together, that would be the brand strategy.
Totally. Yeah, I have, that's funny you mentioned like a picture of an iceberg, because that's how I imagine it too. I have this is going to be backwards because it's handwritten. So, oh, it's right.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards.
But the way I imagine it is brand strategy is the base of everything that we do. In that we're identifying our business goals, which is our target market and marketing strategy. And then off of that, that's when we're building the visual identity, the logos, the colors, messaging type.
Perfect.
And so, and all of that, the customer engagement is all built on this. Typically, that's what the customer sees. But if this isn't built on these things, then there's going to be a disconnect between the brand's goals and the actual outworking of the brand.
Perfect. So that's why most of us as a designers, that my second question, which is we all of us that sitting in the iceberg, the few of us that diving, and to discover what will be the behind or the bottom of the iceberg. So as even Seth Godin had a nice statement about the logo and design. He said that a logo without a brand is a glorified name tag.
Yes.
It's like a makeup, but without, without a real personality. The best results are found when both, which is the logo and the brand, combine to reach your audience.
Yes.
Communicate your message and cut through the noise. That Seth Godin, quote.
He's a genius.
He's a guru. So,
yeah.
So when we're talking about the logo or brand, and I think we are, most of us as even business owners or even design firm, most of us, not all of us, of course, they have like miscommunication or misconcept about brand, design, logo, strategy, etc., etc. So do you think, just before that, what will be the fundamental of brand strategy? Okay, we define the brand strategy, as you said, as like a journey from A to B. That's fine. That will be the foundation of any successful brand. And I think it's essential either for small bakery to big giant factory, okay, and everything in between. But what is the foundation or what they call the pillars, the main pillars for brand strategy?
Yeah, I think I can share a little bit through my process and kind of what I do, but what I work through with my clients when I'm talking about brand strategy is identifying who their core target market is. I think that's like one of the biggest things, because again, we're talking about human-centric design. Right. And if we haven't identified, there are 8 billion humans on the planet. And if we haven't decided which humans we're marketing to, trying to market to all 8 billion isn't going to work. And so the first thing I do is customer profiles and identifying that target market. And we do everything from, we really dig in here and we identify the brands that these people are already buying, the things that they're familiar with, the colors that they're drawn to, the logos that they're familiar with, so that when we're designing for these people, we're actually creating a target for our visual designers to hit. So that's one thing. We also talk through, okay, if a gut feeling, as Marty Neumeyer said, or sorry, if a brand, as Marty Neumeyer says, is a gut feeling in our customer, we have to identify what gut feeling we're trying to create, and otherwise we're going to miss the mark. So I go through things like, what kind of feelings are we trying to evoke in our customers? How does our voice, when our company is talking, whether it's through social media, on our website, if we have brand ambassadors, how are they communicating to our customers? How do they sound? What is their tone like?
So I have just a question, sorry to interrupt. For the define your target audience, it will be from the business owner perspective. For example, you are sitting with the client and you're asking them who's your target audience, or you have to go through the customer journey and see the things from the customer's perspective instead of the business owner perspective. Or maybe you join both perspectives together to create what they call it, to identify your target audience, because target audience knowledge is, I think, the basic step to start with your brand strategy. So from which perspective you're looking for to get your target audience right?
Well, so the way I look at it is, when I enter a meeting room with the key stakeholders of a business, I imagine and I understand that they know more about where they want to go than I do. They might not be aware of it yet, and it's always my job to pull it out of them. Okay. And so I always start with the key stakeholders, where they actually want to go. So we're talking about the people who are the business owners, CEOs, COOs, those types of people. I'm mining out of them, where do you want to go? Who do you see your target market being? Because they actually know a lot more about their business and their target markets than I do. After they identify these are the people we're wanting to reach, then it's my job to climb inside of their customer's head and empathize with the pain points of their customers, so that I can build something that is valuable to them and that helps the business engage with them. So I know different strategists do it different ways, but my specific, or the way I do it, is I first allow my clients to identify where they want to go and what their goals are. And then after they've identified their target market, that's when I go to work trying to...
that's what I call it push-pull. You know, so it's a push from client to identify their target audience, and from your side as a strategic, you pull, you know, their target audience through one-to-one communication, maybe from user experience, maybe from focus group. There are many what they call techniques to identify the target audience, because if we sit with any client, of course they will say, okay, I targeting everybody, you know. So everybody, if you are targeting everybody, that means you are targeting nobody. Okay. Yes. So they have to be more specific, and most of the clients, maybe they don't know, and that's good excuse for them, because they are focusing more about their business. So they don't think about strategy. That's why especially people like you, it's in the market, you know, because they need help from specialists to get that information, to get that, at what I call it, jigsaw, you know, the puzzle, you know, the pieces of puzzle, because maybe they think about something, maybe that's not right. You as a specialist, you come and say, no, the ideal target audience is this and this and this and that. Okay. Sure. So one of the things is identify your target audience, and before that, you already mentioned about identify your objective. You know, without objective, we cannot draw the roadmap from A to B, the journey, as you say. So they have to identify what's their objective, plus identify their target audience. What else? When talking about brand strategy, okay, I will identify my objective, because why I repeat it, because some of the audience, they are business owner, and they want to know what's the brand strategy. It's adding value to them, or it's just something, you know, extra luxury, is not something is essential. So we have to define the objective, then we have to define our target audience. What else?
Sure. I mean, my process is there are some things that I do for every business, and then there's some things that some businesses need and some businesses don't.
Okay.
But I mean, I go into things like revenue tactics. How is the company planning on making money? We talk through a marketing strategy and plan. So and a marketing timeline. So we talk through, okay, in the next 0 to 3 months, what marketing strategies are we implementing? 3 to 6 months, what marketing strategies? 6 to 12. And so we're creating this timeline and a roadmap of tactics that, if implemented, should lead to greater connection with the audience.
Okay, so that leading us to the second question, which is the relationship between strategy and design. Okay, because when talking about strategy, maybe most of the designers say it's not my rule. I'm a designer. I will just doing whatever that client's looking for. Beautiful logo. And that's it, as simple as that. Of course, they should be there, practical, minimalistic, etc., etc. But still, this one is not the spirit of brand. It's just the logo. The logo is not answering the question of if your brand is strong enough or not, because logo is just one piece. Okay.
Yeah.
So how this is very crucial to designer. They have to know about the strategy, or no? Is not their role, and they don't. It's not important for them. At the end of the day, they are designer. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I love this question because I empathize with both sides of the opinion. So right now, brand strategy in the design world, everyone knows it's like getting pushed, and everybody's like, it's kind of this buzz that's happening in the design world. And first of all, I think all designers should understand the fundamentals of strategy. What I don't think is that all designers have to be in the strategy space. There are people who are totally great and they have found their niche. They've found what they love to do in sitting behind the computer and receiving creative briefs from a creative director and implementing those. And that is where they thrive. And that is good and great and necessary. Like, we need designers like that. That being said, that was not me. That was not my story. The way I started learning about strategy and why it was important, I was working for a magazine in Salt Lake City, Utah. And while I was working for this magazine, I was in charge of ad development. And it was an ad-based revenue source magazine. And so I was in charge of building all these ads. And I started realizing some of these companies would come and buy ads, and their ad would be an investment. They were actually making money off of the ads they were placing in our magazine. Then some of the companies that would come and buy ads, I knew no matter how awesome I made that ad, they were losing money on it because their brands were not fully developed. And at that point, I didn't have the verbiage to understand what brand strategy was or how to implement it or who it was for. But I was experiencing the gap when it wasn't there, if that makes sense. I was feeling it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you 100%, because just before that, because I will take a couple of questions. So because it's not just two way of communication, is more than two ways. So that's why I will get the question from Mr. Muhammad. He said about how many pillars for the brand strategy. I think there are a lot. My perspective, we cannot title the brand strategy pillars are 4 or 5 or 10 or 20. Based on my little research, some of them they claim just main 4 pillars for strategy. Others they reach up to 9. I'll just tell you a little bit of them so we can share this knowledge with the audience. And of course, I'm waiting your feedback about this. For example, one is the target audience. Second, about strong, unique value proposition. Others about passion to observable, out of the box thinking, consistency. The brand's objectives comes first. a brand slogan or tagline, even though there's totally different from slogan and tagline, but most people, they messed up. And there's a brand value the brand always provides value and great exposure. This 9 points. Of course, there are other websites, they claim like there are 4 pillars for brand strategy. Some of them 3 pillars. So it's depend. So just this answering to Mr. Muhammad. Of course, if Jessica, if you have any another point of view, please go ahead.
Sure. Well, I think on this specific topic, I think some of it comes down to semantics. You know, like the people who are saying there's 4 and the people who are saying there's 9 or 9, I can't count. Most of what they're covering is actually the same. They're just like subcategorizing.
Yes.
Things.
Or overlap, or yes. Okay.
Totally. So I think there's a lot of agreement out there, but I think semantically there's, people who feel really strongly that there's only 4 or there's only 9. But really, they're all in agreement when you look at from a higher perspective. And so I personally, I start with the 4 in my process of identifying goals and objectives, especially because I've found that when I can start more simply with my clients and then develop things over time, like messaging and things like that, and let those things fall underneath the, the bigger categories. For me, I personally use the more simple approach at the beginning and then let everything else develop out of that. So if that makes sense. So like business goals, value proposition, target audience. Markets, and then and then out of that, underneath that, I let everything else kind of funnel.
Okay. So as if you have like a template or like a blueprint. Okay, you sit with the client to get to pull all that information from him directly, or from the target audience, or from the market research directly. That blueprint, this will be the roadmap for you as a specialist to present the brand strategy to your client, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So
good.
Yeah, pulling it all out of my clients and then using that. And the thing about brand strategy is a lot of what I've found is my clients that take the brand strategy process and they stick to it and they keep going back to what the strategy initially said, the brand stays narrow and it stays on task, on point, versus, you can do a brand strategy session, but if the organization doesn't ultimately implement the things that we've talked about, there, it's just another knowledge base.
Okay. Just say hi to Hashim. Hashim, one of the, for me, is my best friend, and he's specialist, even not just in the brand, even in strategy, and both of us just trying to educate our market about branding and about strategy and even about design. There's another question from, I think, Fatima. She asking about brand strategy should be part of our curriculum in university. I think it's essential. They have to, because most of our curriculum here in universities in general, they focus about the top of the iceberg again. Come back to iceberg. There's no more deep about brand strategy, about HCD, human-centric design. All this is, I think, is fundamental. You have to know the ABC for the human psychology, human culture. Based on that, you can create your own design. Design is not just flat. Design should speak the story, and that's why we have that strategy where they call it SSB. I already shared it with you before. The article that's written in Forbes talking about you have to start with your story. From story, you can build your strategy, and from your strategy, you can get your brand. That we call SSB. I know it's like a new thing, but as you said, Jessica, it's same as your methodology about brand strategy. Maybe just I get it from different perspective. My question, the other question is related to what is the minimum requirements for designer to know about brand strategy? What is the minimum? Why? Because talking about minimum, because if the designer, they don't have any clue about brand strategy, it will be there's a gap, brand gap again. Okay, between the designers and clients needs and brand strategy. So we have another triangle gap between the visual presentation and brand strategy and client's objective. So at least we have to reduce the gap from design perspective. So what will be the minimum requirements from design they have to know about brand strategy? What is the minimum?
I think that's a really interesting question, because I think it depends on where the designer is positioned in his job or her job. Because like I said before, if they're a designer who's receiving a creative brief from a creative director, and they already have a pretty narrow place of how they're, if the creative director is receiving strategy from a strategist and then creating a brief and then giving it to the designer, well, the designer doesn't necessarily have to know a ton about strategy. Again, I think we at least need to know the basics, read the brain gap. I think all designers need to read the brain gap. Great place to start. And at the same time, if a designer is in a space where they're creating logos directly for a client, and they, like a freelancer, is in the space where, if you're a freelancer, you are functioning as strategist, creative director,
all in one,
operations. You're doing everything. And so in that space, the closer you are as a designer to the having direct relationship with the client, the more strategy you need to know.
But I think there are what they call it, a black hole in our issue now, which is, if I'm a designer, I have to know about the brand strategy. Is not easy. Number one, now brand strategy become like a trend. Everybody just claim, I'm label myself as brand strategy, because it's like because everybody talking about, so I will label myself as a brand strategy to get like the blue ocean, because nobody, there's a few competition in that. That's number one. Second, if we asking designer to know a little bit of brand strategy, is not an easy task at all. It needs a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of engagement, a lot of very hard work. It's not just reading a couple of books and that's it, I'm brand strategy. Come on, guys, no, it's not easy at all. Okay, it take years, with the engagement with big brands, small brands, and minimum at least you have case studies. If I have case study, just an example, with one client, okay, at least this, okay, that will reflect my experience. If I haven't anything, how I can claim myself as a brand strategy? That's number two. And number three, most of the designers, they don't care about brand strategy. And they have their own excuse, and I agree with them, because they said, I'm a designer. Give me the brief. Who's the target audience? What's the color you are looking for? Or what's your product or service? And that's it. I will do my job and give you the beautiful brand. That's it. I mean, of course, brand in their perspective, which is logo. Okay. Yeah. So how we can manage this? Because I think it's very difficult. It's not an easy task to ask a designer to think about brand strategy.
Yeah, I think for me, I'll just share a little bit of my story with it. When I first started out as a designer, I was freelancing all of this and doing well, but I was focused on making the coolest designs and becoming the best designer I could be. And my focus was on my own development of my own skills and becoming, known as a great designer. Everything changed for me when I realized, if I can champion my customers the way I champion myself and give to my customers the way I give to myself, all of a sudden it's not me centric, it's my customer centric. And in order to serve those customers well, we have to know strategy if we are going to serve our customers to the best of our ability. And so I think you know, I think you're right. I've actually had people reach out to me who have more content on their Instagram about strategy than I do. And they're reaching out to me for coaching. And, you know, I get on a coaching call with them and I'm like, so, you know, what is your process like? And they're like, oh, I actually have never done it. I'm like,
Yeah.
but you have all of this stuff, you know? And so I think you're right. It is such a buzz right now in the design community, but it takes a lot of work and dedication to get there. That being said, I will also say that designers, I think, as a people, we are specifically positioned in an amazing way to be able to help companies in the strategy process. One of the things I love about strategy is that it takes a lot of the subjectivity out of the design process. And what I mean by that is that instead of us working for a client and us asking, well, what kind of colors do you like? Or what kind of style do you like? We're helping them understand that we're actually not designing for them, we're designing for their customers. And after doing customer research through mining out the details from our clients, we can design for that customer, which creates a very clear target that we're hitting with our design, instead of just like shooting in the dark, hoping that we pick our client's favorite color, you know? And so with that, I think strategy is what allows us to design better. It just does. And it creates, I think it might have been Chris Doe who said this, but I love this phrase. They say strategy makes design an investment, not a cost.
Yes. Yeah, I 100% agree with this point from Chris Doe. Just I have a couple of points I want to share it with you, based on some comments from Hashim and other, I think, lady. So the main thing is I try to summarize all the points together. I think we have miscommunication or misconception about brand strategy, and that will be in three areas. The first area or territory is from a client point of view, okay, because they don't know what is talking about strategy, marketing strategy. Even they messed up between brand strategy and marketing strategy. Okay, just give me a timeline, what you will put in social media, what will be the deliverables, visual presentation, and that's it. That's number one. The other thing, which is from design agency, even the naming itself, we have to rethink about it. It's a design agency, it's a brand strategy agency, it's an advertising agency. It's like different labels. Most of them, they think and act as a design. It's not wrong, but they cannot claim we are brand strategic. They can put that label on them that we are a design firm, which is fair enough. Okay, so we have gap from client perspective. They don't know what they want, okay, and underestimate the brand strategy. It's an extra cost. I don't need that. I need just logo, a couple of stationery, and a little bit of social media posts, and that's it. خلاص, go ahead. خلاص in English means يلا, go ahead يعني, and finish. Okay. and from the other perspective, which is the content that missing from the educational firms, which is university and institutes. Unfortunately, we don't have that deep content related to brand strategy, even if there's some here and there chapter or two chapters in curriculum, but still it's like in a theory level. There's no practical in that. From the client, from designers, either freelancer or companies, and from the universities, all this missing gap from this triangle, black triangle, I call it. So what do you what do you think? What we can get from all that missing? We get nothing. You know, we get all that what they call it, misconcept about brand strategy. Even, for example, in Arabic, when you go to Google about brand strategy, that's messed up. Even if you go to Google brand strategy, how many results? Thousands about brand strategy, and everybody have like different perspectives. Not wrong, but at least we have to educate ourselves. What's brand strategy stand for? You know,
Yeah.
either I'm a student in university, either I'm a client. As you said, as Chris Do even said about brand strategy should be investment. It's not a cost. And that perspective is not practical in most of the clients' mindset. They put brand identity, even if they think about brand strategy, they put it as less than the cost, not investment. You know, that perspective. I mean, when I say we, me, you, Hashim, who's expert in this, or even passionate about it. Not expert, for example, I'm not expert, but at least you. Okay, we have to educate our clients about this one. From education, they change their mindset, then they will decide, yes, I go with Jessica, I'll go with Jafar, I go with Hashim, I go with this or that, okay, to do the brand strategy, you know.
Sure.
So this is the missing part. So we cannot claim our clients. We cannot, you know. So one of the questions, Fatima, she said that we sit with the client, they don't know what's brand strategy. Of course they don't know. Because their mindset or their mentality is maybe focusing about their business, about what I call it milking cow, but they don't thinking about the star. Okay, for the business we have milking cow, we have dog, we have star, we have unknown. So most of them they just think about milking cow. So about star, I think we have to think about it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it actually comes down to, I think it's less about how we're communicating brand strategy. There is the black triangle. There is a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misperception out there. But when I'm looking at my client, I see it more as a client-centric issue than a brand strategy-centric issue. So I have people approach me all the time who have heard about brand strategy. They have no idea what it means. You know, and so on my first sales call, I'm like, you know, explaining a little bit about what I do and providing value to them by consulting them on the call. But in that call, I think it's actually fundamentally a mindset issue in prospective clients and customers, where are they teachable? If they're willing to be teachable, you can teach them anything. You can lead them anywhere as long as they're perceiving you as an expert. But what I've found is that there are people out there, it doesn't matter how much you explain to them, how much you teach them, how much you try to explain your expertise to them. If they're not valuing you as an expert in the sales call, don't take them on as a client, because the relationship won't change.
Yeah, because they switching off, you know, their receiver. So there is no signals. So my question is like more practical to you. How you can convince your client to take the brand strategy? And they aware about the brand strategy, or just become like a trend, so everybody talk about brand strategy, so they are just from the curiosity that, yeah, okay, I need this, this service. So how you can convince your client?
I don't.
Okay, you don't convince.
So I actually, when I am in talking with a prospective client and I'm feeling like I'm having to convince them to buy from me, they're off. I'm like, at the end of the call, I'm typically like, hey, I'm so thankful that you reached out. I'm not sure that we're a good fit, but I have somebody that I think you would be a good fit for, you know? And I always help them. I never end the call of like, bye, I'm not working with you. I always help them find someone who will be a good fit, because I know designers who just want to build logos. That's all they want to do. And so I don't convince people. Most of the people who are coming to me are word of mouth. And when they come, it is typically because they've heard about my work working for another organization. And most of the time they're like so hungry for change in their organization and growth, and they know I've done it for other organizations, that I had to learn how to say no to people, which was I think a lot of designers and brand strategists, that's one of the hardest things we have trouble doing is just learning to read someone's mindset and be able to say no. One of the things that actually just as super practical for the strategists out there as we're fielding for customers or potential clients, in my first sales call, I typically give them feedback, constructive feedback, and I try to see how they respond to it. If they're like, oh yeah, I totally can see how that would, you know, if they're amicable to my feedback and they receive it, I know that the whole client working relationship will be similar, that they will receive my feedback, they value me as an expert. But if in that sales call I give them feedback and they're like, no, that's not actually how we do things, and they have all of these reasons behind what they're doing, and they're kind of combating my expertise and my valuable feedback, then that's like a no-go for me. I will not work with them.
I think you convince, but indirectly through leads by examples, through your reputation, because brand is equal reputation, as simple as that. Brand equal reputation, and reputation coming from leads by examples, and from practical solutions that you already provided to ex clients. That's why new clients, they want to come because they heard about you're successful with other companies. There's a question from Muhammad. He said, what are the misconceptions about design thinking strategic? If you get the question, I will say it again. What are the misconceptions about design thinking strategic? Now we're talking about design thinking, so it's another issue. But I will leave the answer to you. After you finish, I have my answer.
Yeah, I think some of the main misconceptions are, one, that it's easy, that you can just jump in and, start using the correct jargon and just kind of fly under the radar and get paid. I think also on the other end, another misconception is that it's not valuable on the other spectrum of, like, for clients, they just don't understand it. And so I think one of the things that we're identifying as we're talking, that I'm even becoming more aware of and trying to process through, how can we really educate our clients or prospective clients better on what strategy is, because I think that's, I think there's misconceptions on the designer or strategist side and on the
on both sides.
On both sides.
I think design strategies is like just a tool that will be embedded with the brand strategy. Design thinking, just a tool, like a toolbox. Maybe you can use it in the first stage, second stage, but at the end of the day, it's under umbrella of user experience. So you cannot using design thinking, for example, in accounting stage or financial thing. It's not applicable there. It's more applicable for the user experience and for HCD. I think that's my perspective about the design thinking and how we can apply it part of the brand strategy. My second question, which is I think one of the most important question, is for the business owners, how we can explain to them the brand strategy, as you said before, as Christo said, is investment, not a cost. And it will be effect in their ROI, return of investment or return on sale, and it will add in value to them for their business to be more sustainable, and effects in a long period of marketing effectiveness. How we can do that? Especially as even Hashim said, that the client's perspective is not just because you are in Bahrain or Middle East. It's a global mindset. So how we can convince, again about this word convince, clients that brand strategy is more essential for their business, either if they are small startup, or are they in the banking sector, even in factories, just even for government, so at different scales. How we can do that?
Yeah, I think, again, it comes down to whether they're going to listen to us, because we can spit out as many words as we can. But that being said, when you find, typically what I found is that the customers that come to me who are visionary leaders, who already have, they understand what long-term thinking and goal setting, how it affects the journey of getting to the goal. If they already can understand that, when I verbalize what brand strategy is and how it affects those pieces of the marketing tactics and all the things that lie in between where they are now and where their goals are, typically they just, it's like it makes sense to them and they want to move forward. I think with people who are completely unfamiliar and maybe aren't quite so visionary in their leadership, what is helpful is clarifying to them why goal setting is important. And some of the things, you know, I think one of the things in communicating brand strategy is using pictures or ideas that people can grasp. So when I talk about brand strategy with new markets, because a lot of times I get people coming to me and they're like, I love this logo you did. We need a logo. And I'm like, I don't do logos unless I do take you through the whole brand strategy process. And one of the things that I explain to them is in brand strategy, what we're doing, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is we're creating a target to hit. You know, and so what I share with them is, hey, if I had well, this is the client example that I shared, that Melinda had shared on her channel a while back. But I had somebody come to me and they'd been working with a logo designer, a well-known logo designer where I'm from. And this person had made them 20 logos. And they came to me and they asked me for a logo, and they'd seen my work. And I told them that I would be charging them double what the previous designer had charged them for 20, but they would only be getting one visual identity from me after going through the whole brand strategy process. And in that client call or that sales call, I explained that strategy helps us build a target. And by the end of the brand strategy process, when I present the visual identity, they should be saying, what I don't want them to say is, oh my gosh, and be so surprised about what the visual identity looks like, because brand strategy should have clarified at every point in the process alignment, that we're all on the same page, so that when I reveal the visual identity, everybody in the room is saying, oh yeah, that's totally it.
Yes, it makes sense, because most of the designer, just based on what they call it, the creative brief, which is good as like a basic, but if you present your strategy, which is defining your target audience, the tone of voice, brand persona, brand archetype, many things, so when you tell the story of the brand, even part of that will be the slogan, the promise, etc. And at the end, you reveal the brand identity. That makes sense, because at the end of the story, you will show your brand or the visual identity, not in the beginning. Most of the business owner, that will be, I think, the crucial issue is most of the business owner, they start with the financial plan, setting things. Later on, they think about, let us now think about logo. They call it brand. It's not brand, just logo. We need a brand. So when they think about brand, later on, after a couple of years, that's what I faced personally from a couple of clients from Bahrain, outside Bahrain. After a couple of years, they just change their mindset, and they say, and even they request this: what is the trend in brand identity? We need it. Just they are fluctuating. There's no like a roadmap. There's no clear vision. From that perspective, we get a lot of up and down about the brand identity, about marketing, etc. Why? Because they're missing the brand strategy. They think only about the iceberg. They don't think they are not what they call it, courage enough to diving in and to see what's beneath that iceberg, and what will be the results. It just costing them money with time.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna say, talking in business terms to business people is what makes sense to them.
Okay.
And so another way that I communicate brand strategy and help explain the value of it is I explain to them that if I build a logo for you and there is no strategy behind it, it may be beautiful and it may cost you thousands of dollars in the long run. Because if it's not connecting with your target market, because I never identified who that was, then it's missing the point. But if you pay a couple, few $1,000s, go through a brand strategy process, move into, have a visual identity that's built off of strategy, that's built specifically to invoke specific emotions in a specific target market, then your cost up front is actually going to turn into an investment over the long haul,
Right.
as you accrue more trust and equity with those customers.
There is a beautiful question from a beautiful overflow. I mean, the nickname, of course. The question is, telling a designer, make me a logo, is like saying to stranger, dress me. But how do I know how to dress them if I don't know them? How can I know them if they don't know themselves? Deep,
Yes.
deep, yes. I think to the point. And that's why I think Jessica, who's working like in brand strategy, their mission is to educate clients about they have to know themselves first. Because as a designer, just while waiting what the client asking for. And I'll just give you just a little bit small story with a Saudi client. They're asking for brand identity, and we did that. And of course, from our side, we did a little bit of brand strategy, not deep one, but at least the basic. Why we doing the basic? Because we can convince the client, please, this is our recommendation to take this option, not that option, because her as a mindset, we cannot just present just one option, by the way, at least 3 options and for brand identity. Through the presentation, the first reaction from the board of directors, and they are more 50 years and above, they don't like the first one. But after I finish my presentation, I say it again, but like in different perspective, I put a couple of points related to their brand persona, brand tone of voice. They change their decision, and they take the first one, which was rejected from beginning. So what's that mean? We have to, as that the question is, we have to know themselves more than them. And that's good. And that's good from our side, because this is part of our job. Maybe they are too much busy in the functional, operational thing. But from our side, we have to know them, because if we don't know them, we don't know their persona. That's me, for example, if we go for a business that's more friendly, and we design a brand identity that reflects the rigid or maybe sharp edges, whatever that, it's not reflect their persona. So we don't have that matching between the personality, I mean, as a brand DNA, the persona plus the brand visual representation. So we don't have that much. I think this is one of the issues we have to address it. So what do you think about this?
Yeah, I love what I'm reading. What Hashem said, we help clients rediscover themselves.
100%.
I think it's so true. I'm reminded of a healthcare company that I worked with. I think it was right at the beginning of quarantine here in the States. So we did everything over Zoom calls. And it was really interesting because this organization had been around for 30 plus years, and they had found themselves in a place where initially they just came to me saying, I need a new logo, and as I'm, talking with the director and part of their board, I start realizing these people don't need a new logo. They need to know who they are. They don't know who they are, and they don't know who they're trying to reach. And so because of that, all of their communication from their website, social media, any interaction with their customers is super confusing. And they knew that. They just didn't know why it was happening. They wanted me to just come in and fix it, thinking that making something beautiful was going to clarify their brand.
No.
But making something beautiful doesn't clarify a brand. You have to
Right.
clarify a brand and then make it beautiful. And
Perfect.
so it was really interesting. I went through the whole brand strategy process with them and built their visual identity. And, you know, they're like almost in tears when I like show them their visual identity. Like, how did you know this was us? You know? And I'm like, well, because I took time to understand you. And it was really interesting because talking about, going back to what Hashem said about helping them rediscover themselves, I got a call, or I got a call from the CEO, like, probably 2 months after I'd finished working for them. And she said, Jessica, I have to thank you again. She was like, yeah, like your work was beautiful. Like everything that you did was beautiful. But she said, I had no idea the value you were going to be providing for us long term. She said, specifically for me, before the brand strategy process, she said, I had such a hard time pivoting and maneuvering our business because people on my board didn't trust me as a people, as a group. None of us were in alignment about our goals, what we were trying to do, and how we were going to get there. And she said, now after going through the strategy process with you, she's like, I can pivot on a dime, and my board comes with me because we're all aligned.
Okay, just a minute, because we have 2 minutes. I think
go ahead.
So it's up to you or to the audience, because almost 1 hour's finished. I even it's flying like like a light. So do you want to continue or just stop? It's up to you, Jessica.
Yeah, we can go for 5 more minutes. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Even if it's like Instagram is closed, well, I will continue and do the live again. Okay.
Sure.
There is a beautiful statement from Muhammad Zaid, I think. Yeah, something like that. I didn't get the name. He said most of people, they just want a logo and ignore their identity. You know, so they think about what's outside, okay, but they ignore the inside thing, and that's why most of clients, they are jumping from time to time to redo their logo or visual presentation for annual reports or for anything related to design, but they don't have what they call it identity, sustainable identity or consistency in their communication.
Yeah.
You know, so that's coming with my last or two, I think my last question related to how if you have like any case study, if you can share it with us, you know, it's like more practical, because as you said, leads by example. So if you have any successful story with any client, I mean local client, I mean inside United States, if you can share it with us, how for example, how they can start with you and how that change with the brand strategy from A to B, as you say.
Yeah, sure. So I'll share a little bit more in depth about that healthcare company.
Okay.
There's a few, and people, if they want it more, there's some on Melinda's channel. But
okay. Okay, the statement, sorry, that's from my brother. I forget his nickname. Yeah, sorry, Muhammad. He was my brother. Okay. He's my brother. He's my brother. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so this healthcare company came to me, and they were a nonprofit here in the States, and they came to me needing a visual identity. I shared the brand strategy process, and they were like, okay, yeah, we get it. Let's do it. So we went through brand strategy. We did all of it online. It was my first time doing everything via Zoom because of the lockdown. And in that process, it was wonderful because we identified, they'd been around for 30 years, and most of their board was around between over 35, but most of them were over 45. But their target market we identified was 17 to 25-year-olds. Mm-hmm. And there was a communication gap happening between an older generation that was trying to communicate to this younger target market, and everything from their website and the messaging on the website to the logo was really old looking, and it was just I mean, their previous identity had gotten them where they were, and they were successful, but here they were in a place where they were trying to access this new target market and they couldn't get there. And so it was great in the strategy process because it was so clear to see, like, oh, if this is our target market and these are the tactics that we're currently using, no wonder there's a gap. Because all of our communication looks and feels like it's based on a 50-year-old, not a 20-year-old.
Okay.
And so I went through, after we went through grand strategy, I showed them the proposed visual direction. And then once they said, okay, let's go, I built the visual identity. And it was really, after I presented the visual identity and made the brand manual and passed it all off to them, I was so thankful. They implemented it really well, especially on social media. And when I think it was like a couple weeks after they launched the new visual identity and the rebrand, and they sent me a voice memo, and they said, we are so amazed. They were like, we've had such a hard time getting that young customer into our offices. And, in my strategy process, we actually give that customer a name. And I think in their strategy process, it was Mackenzie, the young target market. Yeah. And they said, Mackenzie has walked into our office multiple times this week. And every time we've asked the girl about why she chose to come to us, she said she saw our visuals and our messaging on social media, and she felt immediately like she was part of us and that it was a place where she would belong. And that's why she chose to come to us instead of other places. And I think they had it was something crazy, like a 300% increase on their shares on social media because when they did the rebrand. And so that was just a really sweet, and that was also the same brand that the CEO called me and said, because of the alignment you created in our board, we're able to pivot.
Yeah, it makes change, of course, 100%. Yeah. I think most of clients, either big or small, if they don't see the results, if they don't see the numbers, they won't convince. They say, okay, we are running our business, either small or big banks or small business. We are fine. So we don't need such, this brand strategy. We are fine. Everything's fine. All the balance sheet is good, great. Yeah. And our communication with the social media is fine. So everything's between brackets is fine. So why they are thinking about brand strategy? Because they are not a brand. They are not a brand. There's a business, and there's difference between a brand. Because talking about brand, there's brand persona, there's brand love, there is emotionally, there's a rational thinking about it. Most of what we have is not just in Bahrain or in the Middle East, all around the world. Most of the business, they are business. They are not brand. There's difference between B&B. I mean, business and brand. Because even a small cold store, in my close to my home is a business, but we can't call it a brand. They are for 40 years, so that's mean sustainable. That's mean they are brand. For them, it's enough. Okay, end of the month that covering the overhead. That's it. But we can't call them a brand. So. And they cannot claim themselves as that we are a brand. You are a business, Yeah. So what do you think about this statement? Is it right or wrong, or maybe you have different perspective about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because I think that that's an interesting question. I think I would agree with you in most cases. Unless a brand is developed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, it's not a brand. So unless you are curating a feeling in your customers, whether good or bad, I don't know that you're a brand. I think there are brands out there that I would say are brands that don't do a good job of curating those emotions. And so the emotions that they're curating, the gut feelings that they're curating, they're not good feelings, but they're strong feelings.
Yeah.
And so they,
their statement from Hashim, I 100% agree with him. He said brand strategy for visionary and ambitious clients. And what's the difference between brand and business? If business close, nobody will go. If a brand, there's like, up and down, the brand lovers, they will support that brand in crisis time. And that's the difference between business and brand.
Yeah,
Because the brand, and even the brand, even the brand, as Simon Sinek said, brand can create a tribe around it. Business cannot.
Yeah, on this topic, if anyone's more interested in reading about it, Fabian Geihalter has a book on, what is it called? It's on commodities and how commodity businesses are breaking out of being a commodity and becoming a brand. It's really insightful. I can't remember, but if you just Google Fabian, he'll come up. He's great.
Yeah. Okay. I thought you.
Yeah, no, sorry. Just the whole book is on breaking out of the commodity market as a brand, even though you're selling commodities. And so it's around this idea of, if businesses are just businesses, what really does make a brand, and how are they creating delight in their customers? So anyways.
Yeah, I think brand in business is like more give spirit and soil to the body, and that's what for business we can't say business love, but we can say brand love. Okay, there's for example in brand you can say it's like even the love mark from Mehmet Ogilvy, founder. I think the book, this is the first book, by the way, I read about branding before 13 years ago. So when we're talking about brand love, it's more deep about emotion, it's more about relationship, it's more deep, it's not in the surface. The business, we're talking about, okay, I have this water and this pencil, it's something tangible. But when talking about the brand, is more, it's beyond the product itself. And that's why Steve Jobs said, I'm talking about the brand, don't talk about features, talk about your value, For example, even Nike now, they don't sell just shoes. Who said they sell shoes? They selling the athletic, they sell their values, That's why when you put the Nike, the swatch thing, that in any product, that will be double the price. So that's the brand. It's not just a business. Business, everybody can do their business, can start their business, but not everybody can do their brand.
Sure.
So I just alert about the Instagram. They till now they didn't close our live. That's very strange, because usually 1 hour and they close. Maybe they update anything. I don't know, but that's good. So Fatma, she said that connect with business and human level. Yes, if business connect more emotionally, you can have that long relationship between business and people, B2B, business to people. But if we always thinking about business as like a balance sheet without thinking deep about sustainability, about long relationship between a brand and people, we will stuck with business. And unfortunately, even our terminology in our communications more related to brand, but it's not in brand, it's in business. So so you talk about one of the case study. I think time is over, but if you have any adding values, any adding points related to our topic, please go ahead. Unless if there's like a question from the audience. Yeah, tell me.
I'm good.
There's a question. Okay.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Usually like this. At the end, a lot of questions come. That's okay. Is a personal brand reflect in business brand, which is between personal brand and business brand, and there's overlap. You have to segregate a lot of things. So what do you think about this question?
I think it's a really interesting question, and I've actually been processing through this a lot lately. Just a tip to any designers that are watching this that are wanting to be strategists. The main thing, if you want to be a strategist, you have to be a constant learner. You can never be done learning. And this is actually one of the topics that I've been really wrestling with and processing through, because one of my clients they have multiple nonprofit organizations, and they also, within their organizations, one of their leaders has a very strong personal brand. And so after I did some brand clarity and strategy for their nonprofits, they've now brought me in to do the visual identity and all of this work and strategy for the personal brand. And it has been a really interesting process trying to figure out, how does a personal brand interact with a business brand, and if that person is integrated inside the business, how are they separate? Actually, I have 2 clients right now that are, this is an issue, and we're trying to sort out, you know, if there's a face, if someone is a face of the company and they have a personal brand, but they're also the leader of a business.
Yes.
How do you help? How do you help that business stand alone? And so I actually humbly will say I don't have a huge answer or a definitive answer on this. I'm still working through
it's more deep, you know, and more details, but in summary, first of all, thank you, Jessica, for your time. I think it's a hot issue. It's not never end with 1 hour. It needs more than that. And thank you all the audience, my brother, of course, Hashim and Mr. Muhammad and Fatima and everybody who is involved in this discussion. I think we need more of these live IGT, you know, on Instagram to educate more about our people. Thank you, Jessica, again. And I hope next time it will be like a workshop, maybe in Zoom, maybe something like that. And by the way, in May, inshallah, in May 2021, there's a brand and design forum that we are working for, and bringing a couple of speakers from around the world in Arabic and in English. See you there, inshallah, in Zoom, of course, virtually. Okay. Yeah. And thank you, Jessica, again. And salamun alaikum.
Salaam alaikum.
See you. Bye. See you. Bye.